All right, let me say our morning prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this morning. Thank you for the gift of life and of health. We continue to ask for your protection of our country in the various places we are at. Let there be peace, let there be security in Jesus' name. And we ask that may our class go well today. Help us to understand and to become good researchers. In Jesus' name I prayed. Amen. Okay, so let's get started. So today we're going to look at data collection methods. At least for many of you at that place in your research, you have to do the literature review, but now it's a good place to think about the research methods and how you shall collect data. So last week we learned about the research methods, and I'm hoping by now you're beginning to think whether your research is going to, whether it is qualitative or quantitative, what methods you should be having. So the next presentation, that's where the gist of the matter will be the next time you're making your presentation. So for those of you who finish presenting, and I told you, you have a good concept, go ahead. That means as you're doing your literature, you should be working also on the methodology and the various pieces of work you read. They should help you think about what the methodology should be. So next time when you're presenting, I'll just briefly look through your literature just to make sure you have the relevant issues in there and the methodologies. That will be the main thing for those of you who have gone ahead. Those of you who, when you presented, I told you you still have to work on this concept. We shall have to look at the concept again the next time, the next round of presentations, which should be next week. Yeah, actually, because after we do data collection methods, the next thing is data analysis. So the next, we learn the data collection methods, you should go collect data, then we analyze. So we shall have a good season of presentations and discussions. So let me start this. All right, so data collection methods. So by the end of this topic, we should have covered data collection methods, and we're going to look at the concept of research validity. I was trying to introduce this topic yesterday to the other group, and I told them we cannot look at this in the afternoon. You need a fresh head. So for this next morning, I want us to cover this topic while our brains are fresh. So we're going to look at two issues: data collection methods and research validity. So data collection is a process of gathering raw facts or evidence about a subject of interest in a systematic way that enables one to answer the stated research questions and evaluate the outcome, or that enables one to achieve the research objective. So you're looking for data that is tied to your question, that is tied to your problem. It can also be identified as gathering of information, that is figures, words, responses that describe some situation, and from which conclusions can be drawn. So let's say what you're doing is a descriptive research. So you're even just getting those figures, just collecting data, like let's say for my PhD, I got data for electricity consumers, how many there are, the power consumed in every district, and the energy lost in every district, all that kind of thing. So all that is part of data collection. And there are two types of data that we collect. We have primary data. This refers to raw data that is collected about a phenomenon of interest from the specimen of interest. So you're looking for this phenomenon, whatever you're studying, homeschooling, and from the specimen of interest, from the real source itself. And the primary data is collected using various, this word should be data collection methods, not research methods. Yes. Somehow in research, every word has a specific meaning, and you kind of have to be clear on what you mean. So this I should correct. It should be various data collection methods, not various research methods. And how? So secondary data or secondary information refers to information that is reported in scholarly materials. Secondary data is collected through literature review and archival research method. So there is a research method indeed called literature review. In of itself, it's a research method, and we never learned it Remember when I was teaching, I told you that there are so many research methods. We just looked at a few. So there's a method. So literature review is interesting in the sense that it can be both a research method plus a data collection method, depending on the detail and the intensity. As in, somebody can do a PhD, spend just a whole 4 years, and all they have done is that they have used the literature review research method. But what we are going to do, or what we are doing as we read, in that sense, we cannot call it a literature review research method, but it's just, in that case, we look at it like a process. Yes, so literature review is one of those interesting things. I was actually surprised to find one can do PhD, all of it, just by reviewing literature. However, I remember when we were learning, and we said that conceptual research, that is where that kind of thing lies. You just read and think through and analyze, and all you've done is you've done literature review. And you've collected all your data just through that literature. So primary data is raw data that has been originally collected by the researcher, specifically for this study at hand. Examples of these primary sources of this data include, okay, am I still on? All right. So examples include interviewing community inhabitants to find out about their attitudes towards health services. So if, for example, you're going to go, you want to talk to parents about homeschooling, or you want to talk to students about the curriculum, those are now their primary sources of data. Questionnaires to determine the level of job satisfaction of employees in an organization, observing students' behavior while in class, all that now falls under primary data. In conclusion, primary sources provide first-hand data. On the other hand, secondary sources provide second-hand data. Not second-hand like it is, it is second-hand in the sense that it was used in another research and now it's going to be used for this research. That's why it's being called second-hand data. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is all dirty or not dirty, whatever, like our aspect of second-hand clothes. So secondary data is data that was previously collected for other purposes, but can be used in this immediate study. Examples of secondary sources include use of population census data to obtain information on age, sex, structure of a population, use of organizational records, or use of hospital records. So you want to study something? Okay, so you can also collect data from journals, magazines, books, and other periodicals. So all those can give you secondary data. Sorry. So each of those, sorry, okay. So for those two types of data, there are different data collection methods or techniques. So it's perfectly fine to call it data collection methods or data collection techniques. Data collection methods allow us to systematically collect information about our objects of study, that is either people or objects, like how I told you of that data I collected. So data collection methods allow us to systematically, keyword is systematically, collect data about our objects of study and about the settings in which they occur. Data collection tools, now note this, that the word is now tools, are instruments that are used hand in hand with the data collection methods to collect or retrieve the data. So to avoid confusion in the use of terms, the following table points out the distinction between the techniques or methods and the tools applied in data collection. So for a data collection method, a technique called administering written interview questionnaires, the tool is a questionnaire, pencils, pens, or an online platform if it's going to be an online questionnaire. And then for the method interviewing, the tool will be an interview guide being some questions that you put together that will guide you to guide the discussion, a notebook, pens, a recorder, phone. For a method called observation, you shall use your eyes and other senses. So it may, while we're calling observation, maybe you're doing observation, but you look and maybe you touch and feel this and say, when I touch it and you heard this. So for observations, it's not just only the eyes, but the ears and whatever else is all part of observation. If your research is about food, you can taste it and eat them. You're researching on Uganda's food market, the roadside food market, that one. I was intrigued one time to find somebody that was what they're researching on, all this business of chapati and Rolex. Just how does that play in? And this was a researcher in food. So all that is observation, and you can use pen, paper, microscope, camera. All those are now tools for observing. And then you can use the available information. Now that is if the method should be archival, or in the tools, you have a data compilation form, you have a checklist to help you make sure that as you're going through the secondary data, you're checking what you needed to get from there. So more about the techniques and the tools. If you're doing a library search or literature review or archiving, that method for secondary data, it requires that you have a review or reading plan. Now, again, I said that what I explained for you all that time when we're going through literature review, I more like explained it, let's say simplistically. Otherwise, for the method called literature review, there's a process. There are clear steps of how you're going to go about the literature review, where you're going to get that data from, and you have to plan that. How many papers are reviewed? How strong are they? And that's all part of the planning. If you're just going to be reading, you need a plan. What shall you look out for as you're reading? Then interviews, these are conducted using an interview guide, I said, and that audio or video recording. Questionnaires, and they are conducted using questionnaire. The method is questionnaire, and the tool is the questionnaire. Observation, best conducted using an observation guide. So you also need a guide, that this is what to look out for. Just like for interviews, you need an interview guide to say this is what we shall talk about. The same thing with observation guide, so that you are sure that the data you need, you get it. Remember when we are introducing research, we said it is systematic. So for whatever thing you do, you need a plan that tells you this is what you're looking out for. This is the data you want. So that when you go back to analyze, you have what you need to analyze. So observation best conducted using an observation guide and or audio recording, video recording. Unfortunately, now for us with all these smartphones, it's very easy now to do this kind of method. You can take your pictures, you can audio and you video record. And then there are focus group discussions. These require you to have a detailed agenda of what the group will do. What will you discuss? How will the discussion go? And you can use various tools like flip charts, audio and video recording. So you may plan your discussion, like it will be like some kind of workshop. And so focus group discussion is where you get, it's a qualitative, it would fall under qualitative research mainly. And yes, you have this discussion that you have people who they know about the area you're studying, and as they discuss, they help you get let me say, all the juice out, all the details about this thing. It turns out to be just better than an interview, a single interview with one person. So that is a focus group discussion. Okay, we have a small video to watch, but I think we shall watch it later. I'll put it in the chat later. So this slide shows that for the different sources, the different type of data, we have different methods. Okay, we have different methods. Secondary sources from documents, primary sources, questionnaire, interview, observation. And under observation, it can be participant or non-participant. Okay, Simon, you can unmute yourself and ask. If I hope it's about this where we are now. Yeah. If it's about, you can unmute.
Thanks, madam. But I'm seeing data collection methods here. We have grouped secondary sources and primary sources. And for example, in census, there are sometimes where they use questionnaire or interviewing method. So I don't get this.
So you don't see?
I don't get this properly.
Okay, so you don't understand why census has interviews and observation?
No, why under secondary you have only categorized documents?
Oh, because you're seeing census under there, yet you think, okay, what the slide is missing is the output of the census. You get it? The census data. It's not. Okay, let me put it this way for you, Herbert. At the moment you're doing a census, in that case, you're collecting the primary data, and indeed you're using the questionnaire. So you can look at that census paper, that thing is now the questionnaire. But the census, normally you have people going around collecting the data so that they make it clear, and those who can't read and cannot do whatever, they can get all the data. So a census in itself, you can look at it as a it's a survey in a sense, though it's not a survey because it is a census, it is everything, but in itself is a survey of sorts, and it's a primary method. But after the data has been collected and now it is kept, it now becomes a secondary source of data. So thank you for bringing out that difference. Is it clear to you now?
Yeah, it's so clear.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so the census data is a very good source of secondary data. Oh, these slides are different? Gilbert, I just uploaded these very slides yesterday. You check again. You check, in fact, you check right now, because I put there under topic 5, data collection and validation. Or, okay, actually I remembered, for you group, you may not yet be able to get them because it has this weird thing, the limit. I don't know, they reduced the limit of how big the files are that we should upload. I'll work on it again. Yes, in fact, let me write it here lest I forget it. I need to check on this limit thing. They reduced the limit. It was just difficult to upload these slides, and yet there are very few. Okay. So Gilbert, thank you. I shall look into that. And these slides will be there. For now, I think all you can see is topic, but you don't see the slides. I failed to upload them yesterday.
No, we like the ones we uploaded previously. Those are the ones we have right now, but some of the slides are missing in it.
Okay, I shall upload them. What you have, I think, is up to under topic 4. you check and just confirm for me. For now, what I'm expecting that under topic 5, it is empty for you people.
We have up chapter 8. There's 8. Understanding normal distribution is also there.
Then I don't know what you're looking at. You shouldn't be able to see understanding normal distribution. Is your thing called BIST day?
Yes.
Okay, let me.
It's from where I downloaded them from.
That is where you, or you downloaded them sometime back, right?
Yeah. Not this week.
Yeah. Yes. If you downloaded from some time back, indeed they're different. I keep changing them.
Oh, it's okay.
Yes. Yeah. So you just keep them in a separate file and you check what I keep uploading, because now like those ones that were from some time back, you won't find the other video links and all that.
Okay.
Okay, but thank you for bringing that to my attention. Where's us? Where are we? Are you still seeing the PowerPoint slide?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I was still explaining that observation, we can have participant or non-participant. What that means that, let's say if you're doing ethnography and you can have participant or non-participant observation in the sense that you can just observe, you just part of the family, you're just seated and you're just looking. It can be participant that you can be like you're part of the family and you ate the meal and you wash the dishes. That's what we mean. That you can participate in whatever you're observing, or you may not participate. That's what under observation. And then for interviewing, okay, well, this slide has only two forms of the interviews, but there are really 3. On one side, it can be structured, whereby you have questions and you only ask those questions. Then it can be unstructured in the sense that you just have a general discussion and it more flows like a conversation, one after the other, and maybe going a bit off the topic, but you just want to have what sounds like an honest conversation. So that is in unstructured. And there you just make sure you have your recorder, so that after that you go back and transcribe. Transcribing, that means turning the audio in 2 words, and then you go through the data. However, you can also have semi-structured. That is where you have some questions that guide the conversation even as it goes off point and as it gets natural. So that is what under interviewing. And then for questionnaires, we can have mailed. That means that the questionnaire is sent to people, or you can have collective, in that you have a group of people who sit down and you find them at church, or you find them at the mosque, or you find them in the market, many people, they answer. Or for now we can use an online Google form or SurveyMonkey, that kind of thing. Or you may deliver questionnaires and then pick them later. So a questionnaire is a written list of questions, the answers to which are recorded by respondents. So you have questions and respondents answer the questions. In questionnaire, respondents read the questions, interpret what is expected, and write down the answers. Unlike an interview guide in which the researcher may explain meaning of some of the questions. In the case of questionnaire, there's no one to explain the meaning of questions to respondents. That's what it is like purely. So when I had for my research, I had administered questionnaires. So I had people who are collecting the data and they would explain the data still, and so, but purely that's how the questionnaire method is supposed to be. So therefore, questions in a questionnaire must be clear and easy to understand. The questionnaire can be administered in different ways. So the mailed questionnaire is an approach to collecting information by sending the questionnaire to prospective respondents by email. Obviously, this method presupposes that you have access to their address. One of the major problems with this approach is the low response rate. Then we have collective administration. It's one of the best ways of administering questionnaires to obtain a captive audience, such as students in a classroom. Students in a classroom. Yeah, students in a classroom, people attending a function, people assembled in one place. This ensures a high response rate, as you'll get very few people refusing to participate in your study. So, contents of a questionnaire. So the questionnaire should have a cover letter. And this cover letter, one briefly introduces you and the institution you are representing. It describes in 2 or 3 lines the main objective of the study. It conveys any general instructions. It assures respondents of the anonymity of the information provided by them. That means that you tell the respondents that this information that you give, first, we don't need your details and your personal details. Then you tell them how it will only be used for academic purposes. And yes, then you provide your contact number in case they have any questions, and then you thank them for their participation. So that's the first set, the first part of the questionnaire. While we're pulling it cover letter, it doesn't have to be like maybe it's the whole entire first page and then their questions are behind, but it's like the first section. So advantages of questionnaires is that they're less expensive to administer, mostly if the collective method is used. So if you're doing, if you find people in a group, it is very easy. Then they make it easy to collect information from a larger sample, and they offer greater anonymity in the sense that you won't actually know who said what. However, they have disadvantages. There's no opportunity to clarify issues. If you left somebody the questionnaire and then you come back and pick it later, you didn't know, they won't be able to ask you. And this was a greater issue anyway before mobile phones, but even then, just that it's hectic for a person to have to call you back and say, now what is this? Then a low response rate, in the sense that somebody may not answer the questionnaire and it just stays there unanswered for years. There's one time somebody was doing their research. They come to my office, leave a questionnaire, I fill it. They never came back for it actually. Then it's not possible to consult others as you are answering the questions. This can be different from, for example, focus group discussion. There you discuss among yourselves and you can get something, but here you just answer yourself. Spontaneous responses may not be possible, mostly if it is a mailed questionnaire. That is the same, yeah, because you get the answers back after. You don't get, the people don't answer quickly. Yeah. Then forms of questions in a questionnaire. So there are 2 types of questions you may have. They could be closed-ended or open-ended. In a closed-ended question, the possible answers are not set out in the questionnaire, and the respondent ticks the category that best describes the answer. For example, please tick the type of research you'd love to undertake. Applied, basic, descriptive, quantitative, the person ticks. In open-ended questions, the possible responses are not given. The respondent writes down the answer in his or her own words. Please explain why you adopted to do a bachelor's degree in information and technology. That would be open-ended. Under the open-ended ones, there are 2 types still. There are those which are, so the open-ended, sorry, the closed-ended can also be called structured. And in there we have different types of structures to the questions. So we have dichotomous. This is where the question has two possible type of responses. Yes or no, true or false, agree or disagree. That type of question is called dichotomous. And then we have questions that use rating scales. Rank the candidates in order of preference from best to worst. And we have questions that attempt to measure on an interval scale. For example, the death penalty is justifiable under some circumstances. To what degree do you agree or disagree with this statement? And so the respondent can tick whether 5 strongly agree, 1 strongly disagree, like that. So that one measures people's attitudes and people's feelings towards things which are on a scale. Yes, so there are types of questions you have. Now, considerations in formulating questions. The wording and the tone of your question is important because the information and its quality largely depend upon these factors. So since we said that the questionnaire, there is nobody to explain it, then how you say it, how the question is phrased is very important so that somebody can understand it, or somebody won't be annoyed by it or won't be offended and say, what? How could this one say this? No, I won't answer. Or you may just annoy somebody and then they just tear the questionnaire and they just abandon everything. So it has to be written in a good way. It is therefore important to be careful the way you formulate the question. Some considerations to keep in mind when formulating questions are: 1, use simple everyday language. Don't make things too complicated for people to understand. Then don't use double-barreled questions. Just a second. Okay, sorry. So I was explaining that do not ask double-barreled questions. That means a question that has a question within it, a question that is within a question. For example, how often and how many times, how often and how much time do you spend in the computer lab? I don't ask that kind of question. One, the person won't know now what you want to know. They have to first say, how often this, how much time this. But also when it comes to analysis, it is difficult for you. You have to unpack. You have to unpack and look, and somebody may choose to answer only one. One may answer only how often and they walk away. One may answer just how much time and they walk away. So when you're writing your questions in the questionnaire, then you need to be very clear. Each question should be independent. Then don't ask leading questions. These are questions in which by their nature, content or structure or words lead a respondent to an answer in a certain direction. So, for example, unemployment is increasing at a very high rate, isn't it? Smoking is bad, isn't it? Now that kind of question is not good. But let me ask you, if this is what you wanted to ask the people, how would you ask it? Can you type in the chat any other ways of changing this? Instead of asking, unemployment is increasing at a very high rate, isn't it? Can you type in the chat any other way you could ask that question that is not leading? I'm giving you a few minutes to think about it. If you wanted to ask people's opinion on smoking, how is another way you could ask it? Instead of saying smoking is bad, isn't it? Or you can unmute yourself and say. Thank you, Rajab. So what are your views about smoking? Okay. Any other options? Okay, but thank you, Rajab. So, okay, is smoking a bad habit? Okay, thank you, Edwin. Okay, what do you think about the impact of smoking? Okay, what is the rate of unemployment? Okay, all right, thank you. Now, what you put, let's see, Dennis and Rajab, you put some open-ended questions. Okay. Yeah, what are your views about smoking? The open-ended. So those are better questions than what we had there. Okay, thank you. So, and then also when you're writing, the order of the questions also matters. So questions should follow a logical procession based upon the objectives of the study. So when I was designing my questionnaire, I had a part of my questionnaire. I wanted to know if some people have actually stolen electricity, and if always somebody has had a story of some people who have stolen electricity, and so then I tried to order the questions in such a way that we can get a story of this event. How much power is stolen, when, what happened, that kind of thing. Okay, what is your take, or what do you say? What do you say about the increasing unemployment? Okay. Thank you, Emma, for also your contribution. Now, it's interesting when you design your questions, then you have to take time to think through the kind of possible answers people will say, and if what you want will be in there, or if you phrase the question in such a way that you will get the kind of answer you want. But thank you, Emma, for that contribution. Yes, so the ordering of the questions matters. So it's a logical flow. And if somebody reads through, they can kind of be able to know this is where you're leading them and it's what you want to know, and they can provide you with good answers. So now, when do you use a questionnaire? So you use a questionnaire when you want to collect data from a relatively bigger population. Then when the type of information required is not personal. As in it's kind of information that somebody can easily give away without being so protective of it. Let me say it that way. But also, it is necessary to now these two reasons kind of look a bit contradictory, but with the questionnaire, nobody will know who said what. So indeed, you can use it to protect the privacy. Now, like that time I was asking people, have you seen anybody who has stolen electricity? And I don't know who said what. I just have the data. So when it's necessary to protect the privacy. Then use it when resources and money are limited. Now, questionnaires are considered to be cheaper than interviews. Yeah, I'm trying to think through it, whether this sentence is true all the time. But yeah, they're considered to be cheaper than interviews in the sense that you can, if it's collective, you can give many people in one place and they answer, and that would be much cheaper than having to talk to each of those people. So in that sense, it is cheaper. Okay, we have some questions there, which I'll leave you to think through. Define an interview. I'll design a question. An assignment. I'll organize an assignment and put it on Mail very well. And there are just some questions here again to guide you on when you're making your questionnaires. How do you design a good interview? You read about a good interview guide. How do you design a good questionnaire? Read about a good questionnaires. And I shall leave you with those ones. We shall go through them. So what is it? Okay, we have been having class for 30 minutes. So let me now go to validity. Okay, so now when you're designing your research, even as you're thinking about the methods and the data collection methods and techniques to use, there's the issue of validity. Or validity, or just before I can go on, do we all know what the word valid means? Or can we type, can somebody type in the chat what they think the word valid means? If I say this is valid or this is not valid, what do we mean? Okay, thank you, Arnold. Arnold thinks soundness. Okay, thank you, Arnold. Any others? Authentic. Okay, thank you, Joel. Relevant. Correctness. Okay, thank you. Having a sound basis in logic or fact. Okay, thank you, Rajab. Yeah, all those are valid. Yeah, all those are right on the money. Let's see. Yeah, all those are right on the money for sure. So that's all that you've given are all part of it. So validity is an indication of how sound the research is. More specifically, validity applies to both the design and the methods of your research. And if we're talking about validity in data collection, it means that your findings truly represent the phenomenon you are claiming to measure. So it has all those. Did you do what you said you're going to do? Or this that you're planning to do, will it help you achieve what you want to achieve? Is it correct? Is it sound? Will it be reliable? Will it be, that's what validity is all about. So when an individual asks, is this study valid? They're questioning validity, at least in one aspect. So there are a number of aspects in validity. So there are 4 types of validity that can be discussed. So one has to be specific on what type of validity they're discussing. And therefore, the answer to the question of, is this study valid, has to be in a certain aspect of validity. So there are types of validity, and we're going to look at 3 of them. There's internal validity, there's construct validity, and there's external validity. We also have statistical conclusion validity, but we shall not discuss it for our course. So we shall begin first at internal validity. So internal validity is the approximate truth about inferences or conclusions regarding cause, effect, or causal relationships. So internal validity is only relevant in studies that try to establish a causal relationship, and it's not relevant in observational or descriptive studies. So it's not like in all studies you have to be concerned about internal validity. But if what you're studying is you're looking at a cause and effect relationship, then you have to be concerned about internal validity. So for studies that assess the effects of social programs or interventions, internal validity is perhaps the primary concern. So when you want to know that, okay, we did this, we set out this program, did it have the effect we wanted? That kind of thing, because you have cause and effect. You want to know whether the cause you're looking for is the one, and whether the effect you're looking for is the one. And then we have construct validity. Construct validity is about understanding whether what you want to measure is what you measure. Now, so to be able to understand construct validity, it's about, you need to first understand what the word construct means. So a construct or psychological construct is an attribute, a proficiency or ability or skill that happens in the human brain and is defined by established theories. For example, if I say overall English language proficiency, that is a construct. It exists in theory and has been observed to exist in practice. Yeah, does somebody have a question? So when you talk about construct validity, first we are saying that you're going to be studying things that are not out there being measured, but you want to measure things. You want to measure something that is happening inside somebody. Inside. So especially if we're calling it a psychological construct, you're looking at something that you know it exists. If we say English language proficiency or Uganda proficiency, all this, it is inside there, but we experience it in practice. When somebody speaks English, you can tell that, this one's language proficiency is different from this one, but you cannot hold it. That's what we're trying to say. So, all right, somebody wanting to ask something? Or somebody?
Yes.
Some of
us are seeing the slides.
Oh, you're not seeing the slides?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. Oh, where am I? Where is this? Okay. What happened to Zoom? Stop sharing. Okay. Sorry. Oh, sorry, let me. So from here, you are not seeing anything. All right, let me just recap a little. Okay, sorry. No wonder I was feeling something was wrong. Okay. Okay, let me just quickly go back what I was saying. So I've said that validity is an indication of how sound the research is. Really, that's what it is. And that there are types of validity. So it's not like you look at only one soundness in one aspect, but there are many different aspects that you look for this soundness. And we have internal validity. That is, we are looking at, okay, I'll explain that. We have internal validity, we have construct validity, and we have external validity. Now, internal validity is something that measures whether, or is an indication of whether the relationships that you want to study are the ones. I've now put it in simple terms. So it is an approximate truth about inferences or conclusions regarding the cause and effect, cause and effect or causal relationships. So if you are going to study, you want to know whether this caused the other, or whether there's a relationship between these two. In there, you have to take care of internal validity, whereby you want to make sure that what you said is the cause, indeed is a cause, and what you said is an effect, indeed is an effect. So that is what that is all about. That is what the internal validity is. So it's not something that you would be concerned about in any type of study. If you're doing a study that is descriptive or it's observational, you don't have to worry about internal validity. But if you wanted to say, student performance, is it affected by time, the time they come to the time that class happens? You want to know what's the relationship between time of attending class and performance. In that case, you have to be concerned about internal validity. It should be true that time and performance, there is a relationship there. And you have to be concerned that there are not other factors that affect performance apart from other than time, or you have to take care of them. So when you're looking at validity, then you'll be concerned about confounding factors. So then we have construct validity. And I was trying to explain this, that this is validity that you have to be concerned about if you're going to be looking at something that is a construct. Now, a construct or a psychological construct is an attribute, a proficiency, an ability, or a skill that happens in the human brain and is defined by established theories. So it's something that is happening in the human brain. I think also heart can apply, but it's kind of happening within somebody, though we see it outside, but it is coming from inside. And now we want to be able to measure that thing and measure it very well. So an example of such a thing is the overall English language proficiency. So it is a construct in the sense that you cannot hold it, you cannot say there it is, but it exists, that skill and that ability exists in the brain. And so construct validity is about knowing that that construct, you actually captured it in your research. If that's a construct you want to study, you want to be sure that that is the thing that you actually captured while you're collecting the data and while you're studying. That's what we mean by construct validity. And with construct validity, you can have even an experiment to ensure that you're actually capturing this construct very well. Construct validity, therefore, is the experimental demonstration that a test is measuring the construct it claims to be measuring. Such an experiment can take the form of differential groups study, wherein the performances in the test are compared for the two groups, one that has the construct and one that doesn't have the construct. So remember, we are seeing this construct is in people's minds or hearts. So you get people, some who you think have the construct and those who don't. And then you see how they go through that same test, and then you see whether the ones whom you think have the construct, they perform different, and those who don't have the construct also perform different. You see if there's a difference. So if the group with the construct performs better than the group without the construct, the result is said to provide evidence of the construct validity of the test. So let me say this again. You want to test something or you want to research something that is internal, and you want to show that this test that you've designed will be able to capture this internal process. So you have two groups of people, those who have the test, the construct, and those who don't, and then you see. So under construct validity, one should ask himself or herself the following questions. Am I measuring the construct I want to study? Or is my study confounded? Or am I confusing constructs? For example, if you want to know whether a particular drug, the drug, we're calling it variable A. If you want to know that this drug will be effective in treating depression, depression is variable B. I need at least one measure of depression. So depression exists in various ways. I need to be able to say that this is how you measure depression. This is how you see depression. So that when I give the drug, I know this so and so, before the drug, they were depressed. After we gave the drug, they are now not depressed. How? By using the other construct or the other test or the other things that I said show depression. So if a measure that doesn't, okay, so now depression is one of those things that if the symptoms that somebody displays when they're depressed, they can be for other things. Let's say, what are some of the things, if you have any of you seen somebody, or if somebody is depressed, what kind of things do they have? Or what kind of things do they show? Or if any of us has been depressed, what were you like when you're depressed? Or what are people like when they're depressed? And I just have a few responses in the chat. What are people like when they're depressed? They don't eat, okay? They're sad, they're gloomy, okay? Okay, so let's just go, okay? They're hopeless, emotionally broken. All right, let us now just use those four. They are moodless. Okay, they're moodless. You don't have a mood. Where did the mood go? So let us just use, okay, these 5 examples that you've given me. For example, let's begin with Herbert's. They're saying that people don't eat. They are broke. They are arrogant. Okay, so let us first begin with, let's say what Herbert said. Somebody who is depressed doesn't eat. So let's say you are using not eating as a measure of depression. What that would mean, that anybody we see not eating, they're depressed. But is that true? Is it like everybody who doesn't eat is depressed?
No, some who don't eat don't have what to eat.
Aha, exactly. So if we take not eating as a measure of depression, it will capture also those who are sick, who don't have appetite. Maybe their teeth is that their teeth are painful or whatever. They don't eat. You get it? So if we take not eating as a measure of depression, there are other things that can lead to not eating. Or let's say now, sad and gloomy. So would we say that everybody whom we find that is sad and gloomy is depressed? Let's now think about that. Bear in mind, class, I'm not saying that these things are wrong. They are all true, but I just want us to see that there are other factors. Some of them, there are other things that can lead to the same thing. In what other instances can somebody be sad and gloomy?
When they have lost someone they love.
Okay, they have lost somebody they love. Okay, they're sad and gloomy. Yes, they're depressed. What else? When else can somebody be sad and gloomy?
They have been punished.
They have been punished, yes. And that can be they are depressed, okay? When their partner fails to turn up, yes. Yes, saying that they have been heartbroken, all right? All those now sound like they can be depressed. After saying, I don't know about that, but okay, let's say when something bad has happened, somebody is sad and gloomy, okay? Something bad has happened, somebody is sad and gloomy, okay, for most times, they're depressed. Okay, so we can say for now that test seems to be holding up, saying somebody is sad and gloomy. Has it failed yet on any one thing? It seems like it is still measuring depression at all times. So we're trying to go through it. So what I've been trying to take you through is we're saying that we need a test. We need to be able to, thank you class for your participation. Let me see. Oh, there's some people who have a naturally sad and gloomy face. Okay. Right. So in that case, that means we never notice that they're even sad and gloomy because that is their natural face anyway. For them, their face has not changed. It stays sad and gloomy. Oh, Rajab, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I've got what you mean there. About the kid who's crying, I think he needs to eat. So they may not be depressed. They're just crying because they need food. Is that Rajab what you're trying to say? They're sad and gloomy because they need to eat, but they're not depressed. Ah, okay. Okay, thank you, Rajab. So we have been trying to go through this, that if I'm going to measure, if I'm going to do this study, I need at least a measure of depression. And if that measure doesn't truly reflect depression levels, but rather anxiety levels, let me say whatever I thought I am going to be using to measure depression, it's not actually measuring depression, it is measuring anxiety. Because also anxiety can cause people to have same symptoms like depression. In that case, anxiety is considered as a confounding variable, X. And then my study would be lacking construct validity. That means that whichever way I said I'm going to measure depression, if it has other variables that could also represent themselves as depression, anxiety being an example of them, that would mean that my study is lacking construct validity. The construct that I'm saying to measure, I'm not sure that I've actually captured it. So that's good construct validity means that we will be relatively sure that construct A is related to construct B, and that it is a possible cause, there is a possible causal relationship there. That's the thing about construct validity. Okay, so with construct validity is that we need to show and to prove very well that this construct that we said we're going to capture, we're actually capturing it, and it is related to the other construct that we want to relate, that there's a relationship there, and we need to take care of the confusing, and in this case it's called confounding variable. So that is construct validity. Then lastly, we have the external validity. And this addresses the issue of being able to generalize results from your study to other times, places, or persons. So if they say, did your study have external validity? That means that your findings, what you got from your work be related to others? So for example, if you conduct a study looking at heart disease in men, can these results be generalized to women? So therefore, one needs to ask the following questions to determine if if a threat to external validity exists. For example, would I find the same results with a different sample? Would I get the same results if I conducted my study in different setting? Would I get the same results if I conducted this study in the past? Will I get the same results if I conduct this study in the future? If you cannot answer yes to any of these questions, then the external validity of the study is threatened, as in it's not externally valid. So we have a few videos here that we're going to go through to just appreciate these different types of validity. Just put them in the chat. Yeah, we have actually reached the end of our 1 hour. And we shall only go through one video and then now in the class. The rest of the videos I'll put on Monday. Okay, I've typed in the chat like 3 videos, but I'll just watch one of them, like the shortest.
What is it?
Okay.
External validity. Imagine this scenario. Let's say a lady is sitting on a park bench when a stranger walks by and catches her interest. She would like to make a good impression on him next time she sees him, so she decides to do some research. She surveys the next group of people she comes across to get opinions on how you make someone fall in love with you. The group of people she next comes across are some young children playing in the park. She asks them, how do you make someone fall in love with you? The first child says, what works for me is yelling out that you love them at the top of your lungs. The second child says, oh, I like to wear my superhero suit. That gets my friend's attention. The final boy says, give them some food they like. Chips usually work for me. So the lady waits on the park bench at the same time the next day, and sure enough, her love interest walks by again. She summons the wisdom of her survey group and approaches the man. It turns out the results of her survey weren't generalisable to her situation of interest. And this is what external validity is about. It is the extent to which the results of a study are generalisable to other situations or groups. The love-struck lady's approach didn't go well as her survey was conducted on a sample that was very different from the target population. Good sampling is the key to a study having wide generalisability and good external validity. Here are some features of strong sampling in studies. Firstly, you should ensure a sample is representative of a wider population, or at least the population you want to generalise to. For example, let's say someone is conducting a phase 1 clinical trial to examine the safety of a new drug. If they only recruit male Caucasian university students from one hospital, their study will be less generalisable to the wider population than if they sampled from both genders across multiple ethnicities at multiple sites across the world. Secondly, a large enough group of individuals should be sampled to impart adequate statistical power. Thirdly, any exclusion criteria used in a study should relate to the question of interest. If the exclusion criteria are too strict, external validity will decrease.
Grammarly does.
All right, so I'm glad, I hope that you saw from the video, one, how sampling helps you achieve external validity. Care of external validity. If you sample well, you make sure that you take care of all the different parts of the population. That means that will increase your chances of increasing the external validity of the research. I think for now, I'll end this class here. You shall have more of those other links. I wanted to make sure that you have the information, at least, not all, you don't have all the information you need, but you have good amount of information you need to, as you write now your research methodologies. Yes, next week we shall look, we still have to look at the issue of research ethics, and then that will be, I think that will be enough for us to write our proposals. But thank you for coming. I hope if you have any questions, you can type in the chat. If you don't, I'll be ending the class soon. Yes, as I promised. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Herbert, for that good reminder. I'm sure another recording should be ready. I'll put it there. Okay, thank you for coming. Let me say a quick prayer and we go. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for our class today. Thank you for what we have been able to learn. May you continue to help us to understand it. Continue to pray for protection of our country and over each and every one of us, families and our loved ones. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay. So for all those who haven't yet presented, next week you shall present. We shall begin with you. Please tell everybody, all those who haven't yet presented, you shall present the next week. Okay, thank you for coming. Feel free to leave the class.